Samson, you know, I'm not a lawyer, and I feel blessed to be in the midst of crack lawyers, and I've been enjoying this, but still, being a pedestrian in law, I'm still lost in many ways. But fortunately, governance is not that strict with interpretations, because you have legal side, you can have a social side, political side, all sides in governance. So I'm not able to respond directly to Diana's presentation, because you all have argued for and against her position. With regard to the demonstration, as you asked, well, in the first instance, our initial comments were with regard to their right to do so. And I think that should stand. As to whether Diana had advised them on the legalities and the appropriateness of it, I have no idea about it, right? But let me say this. The issue certainly is fundamentally legal, as all of you have argued. But because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not competent to go that way. But there are certain aspects that I think is of interest to all of us. You look at governance generally, and I think my friend Yusa alluded to that. We have three important legs in governance. We all know that. The legislature, the executive, the judiciary. And for the sake of accountability, we go by this theory of separation of powers, which we try to actualize in governance. And also, we have this notion of the independence of the three entities. So my interest here is within the context of that, the governance. Where are we going with this particular case? First, let me take the notion of the separation of powers. Whether this particular incident breaches that notion is of interest to me. Because if that notion is breached needlessly, it creates a crisis for governance. Not only that, as a fledgling democracy, it also gives some very wrong signals to ourselves as aspiring Democrats and to the world out there. And I've had the issue of the use of discretion or making decisions. Let's not forget that this is not the first instance petition has been made. At least in my lifetime, I won't go far into history, but the petition that removed Charlotte Osei.
And her two deputies.
And her two deputies. From what we know, that petition was submitted by one individual. As I sit here, I don't even know the name of the person. And we're told at the time when issues were raised by the president.
I think it was submitted by a number of individuals. Began with a nameless individual.
Nameless. So how many in all? Do you know how many people were involved in that petition?
It was a couple of people, I think.
Okay, let's say a couple of people. And the president told the country that he was simply a conveyor belt, suggesting that perhaps he did not even review the petition and simply submitted it. So the process went on, and we know the outcome. That, in retrospect, could have been a very bad decision on the part of the president, setting a bad precedence, I should say. Not that citizens don't have the right to petition, but I think when you are dealing with a position as important as Chief Justice, I'm skipping from the Electoral Commission side, I think there must be serious introspection. Again, because of the issue of separation of powers here. And if you go into history, there are instances where presidents have been very angry with Chief Justices. And if you look at how they have dealt with them, it gives you some guidance. Because in a democracy, the last thing you want to see is for the executive behave in any way as to undermine the other branch of government, in this case, the judiciary. So presidents have been very circumspect. In fact, they've constrained themselves.
What's the point? The petitioners bring petition. The Jubilee House should refuse them or receive them and trash them, or what?
As it is, you got to follow the process. That's why I enjoyed the presentation by Inusa. The process, our constitution as it is you have no other option but to proceed with the process, except to say that when it's submitted to the president can decide to move it forward or not to move forward. I think towards the elections, there was one petition that was submitted to the president, Akufo-Addo. We all saw the response he gave, apparently claiming that there was no prima facie case there.
Together with the Council of State.
Exactly.
And Uncle Sam Okudzeto has been speaking about it. They considered it and found that there was no merit in it.
Exactly. So that was one way. Perhaps it was an option to avoid this interference in this separation of power notion. But in this case, the president had decided otherwise. And you cannot fault him because he's following the process.
Is it the president who has decided?
Well, it was first submitted to him, wasn't it?
Correct.
Did he review it himself?
Prima facie, according to the Constitution, is done by
the Council of State.
Acting in
consultation with the president.
So the president saw it. And he could have decided
that
perhaps it's not worth proceeding as an option.
So he does what with it?
Pardon?
So he does what with it?
If he decides it's not worth, as Akufo-Addo did, he could have also written to say, look, I receive it, but it's not worth. Or is the president obliged to proceed by all means? I guess, again, you are the lawyers. Let me understand. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the central point here is that it's always important to protect that principle of separation of powers and the independence of the three entities. That's the essence of my discussion here. So unless...
Hold on for a minute. Okay. Oliver, can you help him out with what he's sort of seeking a response to about what the president